Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today, what are we talking about?
the funniest RPG played.
Ever?
Well, yes, for you or us or for the listener.
Okay.
So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about almost any RPG you could have like funny moments, like things that make the whole group bust out laughing.
Most of them do, unless it's a death RPG. Like, you're going to all die.
Well,
and that could be funny, too.
And then sometimes people can have fun with that one. But I think if you play long enough, that will happen, right? If you play long enough in an RPG, you're going to come up with a moment or a series of moments where things just get funny for whatever reason.
A lot of times, people are trying to do something and they all roll ones and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, the big failure roll and stuff like that. That could get everybody start laughing and stuff. But then I started thinking, is there any RPG that tries to be funny on purpose? Like it's a comedic RPG.
And what did you come up with?
Well, the first one right off the bat to me was Paranoia. And I remember it came out in 1984, so I bought it right around that time. So I was around 16 or 17. And I remember looking at the box, and I was really like, this is pretty cool.
I agree with that one.
Not only is it pretty cool, but the box itself, it just was funny. The idea was funny, and you got that when you first saw the cover of the box.
And you know certain things, right? You have a clone. You're a clone of one of 6, I think.
Yes, you play one of 6 clones.
If you realize this, which you should,
yeah,
then
you know that, right?
Then you know that it's possible to die quickly, and you'll get replaced by your clone.
Yeah, I think the idea that you have 6 versions of that character.
So it's like a cat with 9 lives, right?
Yes. But these characters do die, and like cats' lives, they don't usually die. But yeah, so the art is really funny, and then the back of it, the premise of this thing is really funny. For those of you who have never heard of Paranoia, it came out in 1984. It's been published by different publishers since then. West End Games went out of business, and then the original writers wanted the rights back, and finally I think they went to court, they got the rights back, and then I believe they gave their rights, or they allowed Mongoose Publishing to take over publishing it, and then later on now there's different sets of Paranoia games.
I think we did a whole episode on Paranoia.
And we might have, and I think it was
a couple years ago, for sure.
It was a while ago. But what I wanted to say about it is that it is, from the get-go, it's supposed to be funny.
Right.
Right. And the whole, and I think, like I said, the computer who controls the alpha complex where you live is gone a little bit deranged.
It's lost it.
Right.
It's an AI on a crazy mission.
Well, back then AI wasn't a big deal, but it was just called the computer.
Trust me, this computer thinks, and it thinks wrongly.
So the idea is that there was some natural disaster. Alpha Complex is underground, and it's like a city underground, and then its records are damaged, so it goes back in time to find out records and we're looking for records. And the only intact records are from the 1950s and the Red Scare. So it thinks that commies are after it. So there's commies and traitors everywhere, and it has to protect itself.
And it's true, because it's crazy, and people have figured it out.
No, the people just follow along because the computer is your friend. That's the whole idea. Trust your friend, the computer.
The computer is your friend. It's a hilarious game. Saul told me about one guy at a convention that brought a pizza box that was ticking. Yes. And I remember that story's in that other episode.
Yes, it is. It's classic. And it wasn't even a game that I played. And remember, I signed up Kathy, our friend, very early in the conventions. I mean, this was like probably in the early 2000s. And the guy had brought a pizza box, and an old greasy pizza box. And there was something inside of it that it was tied, like a with the cord or string. And there was a big bulge in the middle that didn't seem like a pizza, and it was ticking like an alarm clock. And then people are like, "Does it really look like this?" He goes, "Yeah, that's the pizza." And they go, "Why is it thinking? And why is it ticking?" And then, of course, in paranoia, people are paranoid. And they're going, why are you questioning the computer? And immediately there was like a standoff where they were going to shoot each other, which in most games they probably would. Whoever said to ask that question, how dare you question the computer? And but they did it, and they were like a little apprehensive about what was going on. They were all new players. But I've been in situations when I ran the game. I mean, I'll go back to when I ran the game. It was a little different for me because I was coming off playing D&D, and I had been playing space opera. So those were like serious games in a sense. Serious in the sense that you're trying to protect your character, you're trying to live, you're trying to get experience and level up. And in Paranoia, they have that, right? You can gain levels and go up in rank and stuff. But really, that's not what the game is about. The game is about the zany doing things that are crazy and trying to eliminate people who might be treasonous.
Do you think that when they wrote Paranoia, they wrote it as a comedy or as a funny RPG?
Maybe like a black comedy, right? Like a
dark comedy.
Dark comedy, yeah, because it is kind of dark, right? Because you are killing each other because you are
paranoid.
And when you're paranoid, anything can set people off, right?
Yes, this is absolutely true.
And it happens in the game, right? It happens in the game. Like, so the reason I was saying my background before I started playing Paranoia or running Paranoia was D&D and space opera, dark conspiracy, games like that. So when I ran it, I ran it like a serious game where I thought they were going to advance levels because you start off. Roy G. Biv is the acronym, or I don't know, I think what you call it. But Roy G. Biv stands for red, blue, green, and those are the colors of the spectrum. And you start off your red level, which is the very lowest level, other than the proletariat. So you start off as red, and then you go on and advance and become higher level, and you're allowed more access to more information and blah blah blah. But that's not the point of the game, and I didn't really get that. So when the players characters start shooting each other, like in the first scene, I was like, whoa, what are you guys doing? And I was like stunned. But they got it, I didn't get it. So it took me like quite a bit of time before I realized, oh yeah, that thinking that they're going to advance levels, that they're not going to die and stuff like that is out the window.
Yes,
and
it is.
And it was like
and it is a funny game because
it is a funny game.
Because when somebody says something, you're like, are you saying that for real? Or are you trying to get me in trouble, right? Are you going to turn me into the computer as a commie?
Right.
What's the deal?
What's going on? Are we really trying to figure out what this thing is, or
what information are we trying to get, and why are we sneaking in somewhere? Because you know what's going to happen if we get caught. And then you just start killing people because you are paranoid that they're going to turn you in. It is a funny game.
Well, the thing that prevents people from just shooting each other like indiscriminately is that the computer values its assets, and you are an asset of that computer. So you have to have a reason for killing each other.
The reason doesn't have to be sane, by the way.
Well, it has to. There has to be some reason, right? You have to present some evidence.
Yes.
Right.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. And so I think there's many times when that situation happens, but there's a lot of times when you're actually role playing with each other, trying to solve the situation or trying to get to the next part of the adventure without killing each other. But sometimes people say weird things when they're in role playing, and people are like, "Well, look at you, stranger." Like, what did you say? And then it'll go down that slippery slope of you're a commie, you should be that. You should.
And knowing that another clone will show up, or there is another clone, it's a little bit easier to. That's the only game that I have been in where players kill other players. You kill the player characters, right? Yeah.
And that was very shocking to me because even though I had read the rules and understood them, and it talks about players killing each other, I thought,
why would you do that?
Yeah, I wasn't wired.
You're part of my party.
Yes. We're trying to advance the party, right? And that doesn't happen. And then again, remember, I think we described everything in that previous episode when we talked about paranoia. But every character is part of a secret society, which is illegal, and every character has a mutant power, which is also illegal. So as soon as other players find out about that stuff,
they're supposed to turn you in.
So it makes you paranoid, right? It makes you paranoid that people, and at the same time, you're supposed to be like having secret meetings with people.
And usually none of you are in the same secret society.
Oh, no, that wouldn't work. They have to be different secret societies. And the secret societies are crazy. Like there's the machine mashers, right? They want to destroy the machine. Then there's the machine people who love the machine. They want to become part machine themselves. So this really is this crazy mix of opposing views that people are trying to get to, and because of that,
hilarity ensues.
Yes, because of all this conflict that's already built into the system. And I think it's just a funny game. There's tons of stories. The pizza box one was funny, and that was at a game that my friend was in at a con. The premise was just from the very beginning was funny. And then multiple times people talked about elevators. Elevators are very strange things to people because a group of they call them troubleshooters, the player characters who are in the game. The troubleshooters go in. All you have to do is turn off the lights of the elevator, and like zip, zang, bang, people get shot, and then people leave the elevator, and like they don't say nothing, they just leave the elevator. And there's like 2 or 3 people out of the party that are dead or missing. But there's no you don't know what happened, so it's kind of funny. That happens all the time. Something to do with elevators causes people to get a little bit paranoid and not trusting their fellow person. But and the adventures that are published, I remember when Mongoose took over, I bought Paranoia. They call it Paranoia XL or something.
Yeah,
making fun of Windows, I believe. And they published quite a few adventures with it. One of them I've been meaning to run for the last 20 years, and it seems hilarious. And it has all these handouts you hand out to characters and stuff.
You should run that for the boys. I think they would really enjoy Paranoia.
I think now that they're older, I think I will. Yeah.
I know. Me and Kathy and Steve would love to play Paranoia.
Yeah, it is a crazy game. It's fun, and I think for a role playing game, it really is a comedic type of game where you are going to come into situations that are just going to make you laugh.
Did you come up with any other games that are funny?
Oh, yeah, of course. So another game that's obviously funny is Toon, Toon, as in cartoon. And supposedly this came about when the author was talking to this artist and also a game creator called Jeff D, and they were talking, somebody should make a cartoon, and they're trying to discuss how it would work, what the rules would be. And then they kind of this was they were talking together at some point, and then when they left, they both decided, well, it can't be, you can't make a game possible. How are you going to make a rules for this? The same creator that made Paranoia also made Toon, which I didn't know.
Was West End Games?
No, he was like a contractor, I guess. So he didn't, so he did that job, and then he did another job. And this one was published by Steve Jackson Games, and it was also published in 1984, which is, I guess, the guy's really creative. And he went home and he thought about it for a few weeks, and then he goes, so he started working on it and presented it to Steve Jackson Games, who published it, and it became Toon. And Toon is this: you play a cartoon,
yes,
and it's kind of like the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, if some of you are old enough to remember those, or Warner Brothers, like Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny always is
the Flintstones.
Yeah, but I think more like
I know,
any kind of cartoon, right? Because you're right, because they get beat up all the time, or at least
it's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Hanna-Barbera, and then the Warner Bros., and then like the Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote,
Tom and Jerry,
anything kind of like those kind of any kind of cartoon where zany things happen, right? So, and this game mimics that kind of gameplay. The rules are really light. There's only 4 attributes and 23 skills, right? And you can't die. What happens is if you get
because you're a cartoon,
because you get smashed or blown up or whatever, you have to sit there for like 3 minutes without talking.
So the coyote can draw that tunnel on the rock, and you can run into
The
it.
Roadrunner draws the tunnel.
Oh, yes, and the coyote runs into
The
it.
coyote goes straight into it. So there is a companion to it, and there's some adventures in it. And I think it's one of those things.
Is it still published?
No, it is out of print. Steve Jackson stopped printing it quite a while ago.
Oh, I'm sure you can find it.
You can find it on eBay
or stuff.
Different places. I don't know if Steve Jackson is into PDFs. I know a lot of other companies do. Just presents like D&D. Everything's on their PDFs. All their old games, all their old adventures and stuff. But you can watch a cartoon, any cartoon, and come up with a.
I suggest Bugs Bunny.
I suggest Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. And of course, there's all kinds of different things. You can be rabbits, all these different kind of characters. And like I said, you have 4 stats, you have 23 skills, and it's a really light rules game, unlike like other Steve Jackson games like GURPs. This is just really roll your skill number and boom.
So I think if you're a cartoon, then it's going to be a interesting adventure, right? It's not going to be anything too serious.
Right. Yeah. And I think the idea is it should be funny.
Well,
right?
yeah.
And I think in the rules it says if there is a rule against it, but what the person is trying to do is funny, ignore the rules. So we have a friend that goes to DungeonCon and runs it every
year.
Every year, yeah. He's been running Toon for he said I forget the number, but it's well over 30 years. I think DungeonCon's been around since the late 70s, I believe. And so it's been around a long time. It's over 40. Since it was in a DungeonCon 45 or 46 this last time we went to. Anyway, and there's all kinds of weird numbering problems with that one because there was a year they skipped, there was a year they did 2 and all this other stuff. And anyway, so he's run it every Friday night at DungeonCon for a bazillion number of times, and he always has a full table. Sometimes he even accepts people who couldn't get into the game. And I walked in games and he has like 12 players or more. But
that's the kind of game where you could have 12 players.
Yeah,
and he's a very experienced GM.
And everything goes, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to hit somebody over the head with a big old hammer that you pulled out of your pocket.
Because that's what happens in cartoons.
That's exactly what happens. And I guess there's some sort of mission they're trying to accomplish, of course.
Yes.
These cartoons. So
they're probably trying to save the world.
Always. Yeah.
Or find a box.
Find a box.
With gold in it or something.
With 1,000 boxes. So that was obviously very geared to be funny. I mean, cartoons just usually try to make you laugh, and I think this game tries to mimic that kind of gameplay, mimic what you would see on a cartoon.
So in the rules, it literally says that if it's funny, to let the people do it.
Yes, even if it goes against the rules, because if there's a rule,
well, that's rules 0, right?
They take it more literally. Yes, they actually put it in the rules. Yeah. But they say even if there's a rule and there's a rule against it, if it's funny, you should let the action happen. Yeah, that's pretty strong words because like sometimes people say, well, it's your game, you can do what you want with the rules, you can change the rules, right? But one where the rules are explicit and it says you should do this, most game makers they'll say, well, you can do anything you want, but there's rules there for a reason. This one says, there's a rule there, but go with the.
If it goes with the story, the rule doesn't need to be there.
And it's funny. That's supposed to be funny. So I thought it was interesting that the same guy, I cannot pronounce his last name, the person who made.
You can write it in the notes.
Paranoia is the same guy who made Toon. Of course, he had some other writers helping him. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So the next game I thought was kind of funny, even though it's not necessarily a comedic game, is Feng Shui. And the only reason I include it is because it seems like every time I run that game, even though I don't run like comedic games, something funny happens and people start laughing. Like just strange things happen. And when that happens, when the unexpected happens, I think people find it funny. And in that game, unexpected things happen all the time.
Well, also in Feng Shui, you have a lot more leeway with what you can do, right? Because it has to do with, you want it to be dramatic and over the top. You want to be able to run and walk up that building, right?
Right.
You want to be able to fly like on a rope across something that normally you wouldn't be able to. But because you're a thief and you give an explanation of what you're doing, it happens. And it usually makes people laugh at the table because they're like, that's so over the top. That would never happen, right?
Right. Or like if, let's say you attempt to do something that.
And you fail.
And you fail. And like the results. And a lot of times when I run that game, I always try to let the players just say, okay, what happens? And because I'll come up with something. And it's usually true. When GMs have to come up with something like a complication, a failure, a critical failure, they're going to come up with something. Most of the time it's bad when the GM puts something out. But when they allow the players to come up with something, usually it's a little worse than the GM had envisioned, or it's something totally different than the GM had thought about. And that could be good for the game. And because of that, people are going to be shocked. People are going to be surprised about bad things that happen when players are describing their own critical failure or even their critical success. Usually in that sense is when the unexpected happen and it just cracks people up. In Feng Shui, the unexpected is going to happen because players have a lot more agency in the game than most other traditional role-playing games. So I think when things like that happen, it's going to be funny. People are going to be shocked. That is why I included Feng Shui into this game. But there's other ones you talked about. We actually played in the Kobolds Ate My Baby, which is, at first I was like, what the heck is this game? And you play kobolds, right?
Yes.
You play the kobolds actually, attack somebody. And they are like really weak characters.
Very.
And they have, I don't remember how many stats they have.
But it wasn't very many.
There was like maybe 2 or 3 stats. And they're super easy to make, the characters. Luckily, because you're going to be making a few characters.
And they're easy to kill.
Yeah.
Or easy to die.
Easy to die. And I think when we were playing that game, we were just trying to, I don't even remember what we were trying to do, but we were trying to go somewhere and get something and bring it back.
Yes.
And it was very difficult.
And people don't like kobolds.
Yeah, you're kobolds. And we were sent to a human settlement. I think it was like a walled city. And we were trying to get in. And we decided that we would sneak in. And I think we were trying to be children or pretend to be children. But kobolds don't act like children. So we immediately got found out. And then we were being chased around this whole yard. And indeed, we are very weak characters. So that one is supposed to be funny, I'm pretty sure.
And it is funny.
And it is funny just because of the situation, just because you're supposed to act all crazy as a kobold. You're supposed to act kobold-like. And a lot of times they get into fights with each other over appeared grievances. And that was another thing that one of the tips they said is that kobolds usually are very, what is it?
Arrogant?
Yeah, and there's a pecking order, right? And they'll pick on the person who's lower than them. And so the lowest pecking order kobolds have to like get devious. And when people get devious, things can get kind of crazy. And that was a funny game. And I think I went through like 2 or 3 characters. And I think all I did was just change the first letter of their names.
I think that's what you were supposed to do.
Oh, is that what you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
I just kept, because I forget what his name or her name was, but I just kept crossing off the letter, and here comes cousin Chigit or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was good. It was funny. I thought it was it's usually not my kind of game. I like playing games with a little bit more substance, like longer play, but
it was fun. I mean, it was fun and it was funny.
Yes. But once you let go of the idea that you want to run a long, serious campaign like game, this is a game that can only be maybe a one shot, maybe 2, but you're going to go through a lot of characters because kobolds are very chaotic.
And they have very few hit points.
I think most of I was going to say most of the deaths were between ourselves, but I think we were pretty well behaved between each other. Though we did keep getting into fights because people kept wanting to go one way and the other way, and then the only rational way to decide things is to see who beats the other one to the pulp more.
I don't know how rational it is, but
for a kobold, it's rational.
But playing a kobold too, you're looking at the world from a different perspective. You're a lot shorter, and those people are big.
Right, and so I think that's where we got the idea that we could play children if we like wore children's clothes. So we had to steal the clothes, and then like we had to decide who was.
I don't recall that at all.
You don't remember that?
No.
I remember trying to do that. I don't think we succeeded because we don't look like children. Because they were like, kobolds. They look like little dragon guys.
So that's a game to relieve tension, right? To make everybody just laugh and have fun because you're gonna die, right? And and it tells you what to do when you die, how to change the name of the character because you can keep the same character sheet.
Right, I think that's what it was. You didn't have to roll up another character because you would just keep the same character sheet and just change the name. That's a good mechanic, especially for that game. Much like the clones, right?
Yes.
In Paranoia, because in Paranoia, they changed the rules a little bit, but in the old game, the original game, you would have a number. Your last name, part of your name, would be a number, and that was the number of the clone you were. So the higher the number, the closer you were to like that clone family being eliminated. So as soon as you got to like 5 and 6,
you didn't want to die anymore.
And you were very careful, and those clones would definitely be very careful. Later on, because of advanced technological advances in real life, they say, well, the idea of housing clones and keeping them alive, it was too wasteful, so they wouldn't do that. They would instantly grow a clone and then torpedo them to wherever they needed to be, like in a big missile. Which
is funny in itself.
It was funny in itself because, like, sometimes it lands on a clone.
Right.
That's part of the party. So that all you would change the last number of the name. Like, you would be like Big Bob 1, Big Bob 2, whatever.
And I forget, do your clones remember what shirt
Yes,
the last
clone
died? I don't think that you did.
No. So that was another thing about role playing is that they would that you would have to like forget the last whatever
the last scene
or as long as that guy has been alive. Yeah, it was. I guess it was problematic, but in the new one, at least in the Mongoose version, they would download the latest memories of the clone right before he died. Not his actual death, because that'd be too traumatic. So, or how he died. He just knows that he died, right? Because
one of these people killed me.
Well, or they could come up with anything, really.
Right.
So they would tell him how he died, if he cared, or if they cared.
But as the clone, you would know that one of them killed you because that's where you are.
No, it could have been like a monster that killed you, or a bad robot. Because sometimes in the Alpha Complex, there was a lot of bad things that could happen. I mean, other than other troubleshooters shooting you and killing you, there's bad robots, there's bad machines, abandoned areas, monsters, and stuff like that. So I think it took that's an interesting mechanic where you don't have to roll up a new character, especially when games or the adventure or the game itself is one where the characters die very quickly and very easily.
Yes.
And there's if you just like Google comedic RPGs, tabletop RPGs, you're gonna get a whole bunch. Some of them I had heard of, and some of them I have not. But these are the ones that I remember playing, and these are the ones I remember actually having a good time and laughing and enjoying.
As funny,
right?
When I Googled it,
I
got Kobolds Ate My Baby, Fiasco. I'm not sure why, and Inspectress.
Inspectors.
Inspectrace. It says.
Inspectrace. I don't
Inspect.
think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. So
Fiasco is a GM-less game where you're on a heist that goes wrong.
Yeah, I know.
So it could be funny, but like what was that one movie? Not Pulp Fiction, but the other one, Reservoir Dogs. That is not a funny movie.
Heists going wrong don't seem funny to me, but it could be funny.
It could be funny. Yeah, you're presented with absurd situations. So they're out there. Some of them are more have more rules than others, and some of them are harder to get. Like Toon is, like I said, is
out of print.
But Feng Shui is still around.
Paranoia
is still around. Kobolds Ate My Baby is obviously still around, and some of them you can just get on PDF and need the book because the PDF is just fine.
And you don't have to have a strictly funny RPG. I mean, you could do that with D&D and make it a ridiculous adventure, right?
Yes,
If you wanted everybody to laugh.
Yeah, I remember we played in a game where we were trying to find ingredients for a cake or something for a feast, and the GM was having us go to like the top of this eagle's nest and all these ridiculous places, and that was kind of funny. So I think if you could make any game a comedic game if you want to.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
So those are all of them?
Those are the ones that I had.
So there you go. So go out there, find a funny game, and run one for your peoples. I think they would like it.
Yeah, they're a little bit different game.
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.